Gunnar and Esiason, and you are listening to Breathe In, a cystic fibrosis podcast presented by the Boomer Esiason Foundation and GunnarEsiason.com. This podcast series has been made possible by Vertex, Novartis, DCU, and Atlantic Health. The views expressed on Breathe In, a cystic fibrosis podcast are that of Gunnar Esiason, Lea Ferrone, Tiffany Rich, and guests, and are not necessarily those of the Boomer Esiason Foundation. Nothing in this podcast series should be considered medical advice. Such advice can only be given by a physician who's experienced with cystic fibrosis. The Boomer Esiason Foundation, Gunnar Esiason, Lea Ferrone, Tiffany Rich, and guests cannot be held responsible for any damage which may result from using the information on this podcast without the permission of your medical doctor. You're listening to Breathe In, a cystic fibrosis podcast. All right, we're back for another episode of the Breathe In podcast. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you here in the U.S. who had Thanksgiving yesterday. It's obviously holiday season now. And I'm obviously joined by my co-hosts, Lea Ferrone and Tiffany Rich.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving yesterday.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hope everybody had a good one.
I definitely did. Exactly.
Sure.
So, all right. So today we're going to talk about. So I want to jump right into it here. We're going to talk about living at home later in life. So, partly because all three of us do live at home ourselves. We live with our parents, but more importantly, because a lot of people with CF do find themselves in a rut trying to get out of home after coming back from college, or that their health is sort of just demanding of them to be around someone else at all times. I'll sort of start off here. I went through college I was anticipating going to graduate school or law school after school. It didn't happen. My health sort of declined. And now here I'm living at home, 4 years later. I think in the beginning it started off for medical purposes, and it sort of transformed into saving money, but also kept the medical reason as well. But I think I want to sort of start off here by saying, I think there are a lot of people out there, and me included in some ways. You see your friends, progress through life, and that's like it's definitely a source of pride for me. But you also at the same time feel like you're missing out on other parts of your normal 20s. Your 20s should be out experimenting with your friends, getting into social, new social groups away from your college friends or your high school friends. You start meeting new people in a new city and things like that. And those are definitely things that I feel like I've sort of missed by living at home.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I've never left home, so I've never even experienced being outside of the home. Because I did go to community college, then my school, like we've talked about, is like 40 minutes away. So it was not financially, it's not reasonable to go live over there when I can just commute. Mm-hmm. So now, obviously, when I got sicker and sicker, I needed to be home with my family because I needed that support and help. So and then I see all my friends being able to go buy a house or go have their own apartment, and my best friend just moved to San Francisco. So she's starting her whole life, and you see all these people doing these fun things and you're like, but really I have all these medications. I need to have someone supporting me through all of it. So leaving home is very difficult. So I
also think the demand on how much we have to do in a day, like working, trying to have a social life, then doing, for me, I have to do 2 hours of treatments in the morning, 2 at night, and then depending on what inhaled antibiotic I'm on, I'm going to have to do some in the middle of the day also. Exactly. So just that demand, and then having to clean everything and get everything ready for each treatment and things like that. If I had the responsibility of owning a home on top of that at this point by myself, I would not physically be able to do it. There is no way. I cannot logically figure it out other than I wouldn't have a social life. And then
you would have, and you have to clean the whole house. And you have to.
I don't think today.
I don't think you should.
Yeah.
I've
been cleaning.
I don't think you should sell yourself short. I think there are. There definitely are learning curves. When you first get to your college dorm or whatever, there are learning curves to living on your own, and there's you're grocery shopping for yourself, you're living amongst other students and stuff like that. Obviously, the place is a lot smaller and more
Right.
Well, I guess less demanding. But, look at it this way. If I lived in New York City, the apartment that I could afford in New York City wouldn't be much bigger than my college dorm. So, I think it's kind of this, it's a very similar thing in that sense. But at the same time, you're right, because there is another demand upon us, and that's taking care of ourselves and also having someone around to help when necessary is a huge part.
That's
the three of us
my
have
biggest thing.
The three of us have really great support systems, and I know when I get really sick, my mom definitely steps up to the plate and goes to bat for me, especially when I'm not feeling well, I'm unable to do something for myself, which it happens occasionally. But then I sort of have to weigh the pros and cons of being like, okay, I could be living on my own right now, but if I get sick, what happens? Do I come home and live at home for those 2 weeks? Is it then worth it for me to, also be paying rent on an apartment that I'm not in for however many weeks out of the year because I'm sick at home? Or is it, or do I just need to go out there and be myself? I think I sort of go through that little fight with myself all the time.
I do too.
I'm not, I think it's nice that I'm not alone there. And this fight really sort of, or not really fight, but this like a good angel, bad angel sort of thing came upon me this past weekend. I was actually, Friends was on TV, the TV show Friends.
Okay.
And I had never watched it when I was younger. It was never something that I loved watching. I guess it just wasn't really for me. And I didn't really realize that the characters in Friends are 25, 26, 27, 28 years old. And it basically just highlights what that social life is like for people who are our age. And it made me stop for a moment and think about, wow, I'm really missing out on that by not living amongst my other friends in an urban area, just like the show Friends depicts. That's something that I suddenly had that feeling the other day, and I was like, wow, this is a very weird thing for me. But at the same time, I do love being home. It's hard to pass up a home cooked meal or help for mom and dad. But at the same time, it's like,
exactly.
You are missing out on the independence that I once had in college.
I know, and I think that's a really hard adjustment to go through. And I know I didn't plan on living at home this long after college. I kind of thought my first year I'd live at home, and primarily I was doing that so I could save money, because you get fresh out of college. Some people have loans. I know I had a couple that I had to pay off, and I needed a new car. So that were my two main things. I needed to get that taken care of. But then at that point, once I had gotten through that first year, that's when my health kind of took a turn, throughout the course of that year. So I went from working full time to then not really being able to work for 3 months, and then gradually working myself back up to working the hours I used to work. But that whole, situation, that took about 2.5 years to get myself back to where I was. And I was on IVs all the time, and thinking about, okay, if I would have moved out and would have had rent to pay on a place, I would have just been paying rent on a place I never would have been at because I would have been home majority of that time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it feels kind of risky, okay, I'm in a good place now, but what if I move out and then the same thing happens? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, it's hard to weigh those options.
I feel like if you move out, you're going to need someone that knows you very well and can help you through it, or you're going to want to stay with mom and dad because they are they're your support system. They know you inside and out and will help you through it. That's why we are home, because we want to save money, yes, but we want our support system. I want my mom. My mom's when you're sick, you want your mom. Even people that don't have CF, they want their mom because that's comfort and you feel safe and everything. So that's reason why you stay home too. Is just
you're definitely right. I call that person the first responder, right? You always need to have a first responder present just in case something does happen, or if something has happened, that person can help you get back on your feet. It's very hard for a person with CF to just go live on their own somewhere and then that's it. In college, I lived with roommates all 4 years, and those 4 years, my first responders were my college roommates. I trained them. Right. I trained them on the ins and outs of CF. I trained them on basic care if something ever happened. And there were friends that were better than others. I had one of my roommates had a girlfriend, and something really horrible went wrong while she was over one day, and she just could not handle me being sick. It was a really devastating moment for me, but also for that person to even be there, a witness to it. But luckily, my roommates, all of them, handled the situation appropriately and got me help as necessary. And those are things to fall back on. But now that you're older and you're sort of beyond the roommate period of life, people live with roommates for a couple of years right out of college, and then the roommate sort of zone ends. People want to live on their own eventually. I'm definitely, now that I've lived at home for so many years, I think I've missed that roommate period or the roommate window.
I feel the same way.
Living with roommates. So and I also don't want to have to learn to live with somebody again. I feel like I'm already beyond it. Like it's not really fun to.
And I feel like the people I would live with at this point, like a lot of them either live with their significant others or, you know what I mean? Like it's just not a situation that it would work at this point in my life.
They're in a different stage of life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now. So I would be living by myself, and what if something were to happen? What do you do?
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I try to stay away from like the what if thing, but in our case, you really can't stay away from the what if because you have to plan for practical situations that will inevitably happen. Like I know that I'm going to get sick at some point within the next 4 to 6 months. It's just going to happen, whether it's a cold, or it's a lung exacerbation. It's going to happen,
right?
And I'll be able to fight it off one way or another. But who knows how intense that care is going to be and whether or not I'm able to do it by myself. I'm one of those people that I hate going inpatient to the hospital because I feel like I just don't get better when I'm in the hospital personally. I feel like I need to be outpatient doing things and sort of getting better on my own accord. But when I'm sort of in in a situation that really allows me to thrive, it's when I'm with other people.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's how I am. Like if I get admitted to the hospital, I end up just declining. I don't do any better. So I don't do it.
I don't really see any benefit to being inpatient as well. I mean, it's I can do as soon as I start to get better over the first day or two. I'm like,
no, that's how it is.
I can just do my IV. Like I can.
You
take
need
my
to be
enzymes.
there for the first day or two. But then once you get over that hump of figuring out what meds you need to be on, because a lot of times I'll get admitted for that sole purpose because what we thought I needed didn't work. So let's try something different. Once I start doing laps around the hospital, like multiple times a day, that's when okay, you've got to get me out of here because now I'm going to lose my mind.
Well, then you feel so much more comfortable at home because you have your own bed and you kind of make your medicine times the way you want it. Mm-hmm. And then you're able to go do stuff to your limit. And I think you get more exercise that way too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're home, you can do more than sitting in a hospital bed and having. I feel like it's good for the first few days, yes, because you can rest and they do everything for you. They check your meds and stuff, but then you're like, okay, I'm over it. Get me home.
My point though is that when you're home with somebody else that you can trust, that's what makes it a homey feeling, right?
Exactly.
You can take care of those the first few days in the hospital when you're unable to care for yourself at home because either your mom or in my case when I was in college, my roommates were around and they were able to help me when I was when I was needed or when I needed them rather. And I do think that that's part of the homey feeling, right? You can make any house into a home or any apartment into a home if you really put some effort into it. But at the same time, what makes it a really homey place is having the people around you that you love. Whether those are your roommates, your college friends, your significant other, your mom or dad, whatever. And I think that's the difference between, living on your own when you don't have a first responder and having the first responder with you.
Yeah.
Right. You see what I'm saying? I do see the benefit of going to the hospital for the first 2 days, but I mean, I haven't done that in years, knock on wood. But I do think that, if I have somebody around, for example, I'm living at home, if I do get very sick, I'm able to just start IVs at home because my mom is around or my dad is around or somebody's around that can help take care of me. If I was living on my own in an apartment in New York City, I would not have that resource and I'd either have to go inpatient or I'd have to come back to the house.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in that case, or at least this is what I think of in the back of my mind, I'd probably end up on those IVs longer because I didn't have that initial help in the beginning.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely. If I didn't get admitted. You know what I mean? And I just personally don't like getting admitted.
Recovery...
I don't think anyone enjoys it, but I just personally don't thrive that way. So
No, I don't either. I mean, like you're
Yeah.
like Tiffany said, you're just laying there in bed all day. Like I don't think
right,
that
they don't
accomplishes
let you
anything.
really do anything.
Whenever, I mean, the last time I was admitted, we definitely broke hospital rules. But my dad was like, my dad got bored, and he was like, "We're just leaving," so we left, and like we just walked down the street. I mean, we broke every infection
I've done
protocol
it.
there is. We
I've
just
done
left.
it.
I mean, it's like there's. The people here are willing to help you, but since CF is such an isolating thing because of the bacteria concerns and all that stuff, like, how can you expect a patient to get better when he's just sitting in a room all day? And the room is like a 12 by 12 room with a
know.
bathroom.
Yeah.
And you can't.
It's
I mean, you don't even want to use the bathroom water. You don't even like. I've never taken a
No.
shower in the hospital. It's disgusting.
I hate
I
it.
don't ever want to do that. It's gross.
No.
You trust that water? I don't trust that water. No, absolutely not.
Exactly.
Absolutely not. That's not even.
I have to though. If I don't take a shower, I don't feel human.
I would rather be
Like,
gross.
yeah, that's
I would rather
true.
be. I mean, I'll tell you.
I'd rather take a shower. I'm just taking
It
my
depends
chances.
how long you're there, though.
I take one like the first day. I'm not even joking.
Oh my god, it's
I
disgusting.
don't. I
I
was too
can't
sick.
stand it.
Oh, see,
I
went-
can't stand feeling dirty. I just can't.
when I was in
No.
college, I got admitted at Boston Children's because I had like a flu-like virus. It was nasty. It was horrible. I was throwing up. I had like fever around 104 degrees. It was horrendous.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad.
So I was inpatient for like 3 or 4 days, and on day 3, it was like a Monday, and we had a huge snowstorm over the weekend. My mom actually came up from New York to like come be with me, and this is one of those situations where I had to be in the hospital because that's just how sick I was. And I remember the doctor came in, and the doctor was like, "We have student nurses that would like to come in and see a cystic fibrosis patient. Is that okay?" And I had this sort of moment, and I was like, "Oh my god, I know what the nursing students at Boston College are like. They're all girls, and I haven't showered in 3 days. What is this going to be like?"
Right.
And I was like, "Well, what school are they from?" And they ended up being from Northeastern, so I was like, "All right, send them in." And next thing you know, I'm like, I said, "Give me a minute," and I like kind of did one of these,
Yeah.
and then I sort of like made
doesn't
myself
really
look a
work
little
for girls,
presentable,
but yeah.
regardless of how sick I was. And my mom started laughing at me, and the student nurses came in for 2 minutes and they left. But that's why I mean, let me tell you something. They were, regardless of whether or not the certain nurses were coming in, I'm not showering in the hospital. It's not happening. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we're just gonna have to agree to disagree.
That's also a benefit to being at home. You can shower when you need to.
Exactly.
Oh, I know. It's so much easier to shower at home, and I
you
don't
know
feel
it's
as gross
clean.
about it. Yeah, but
Oh,
I mean,
the
I
hospital
lose
shower
my
is gross.
sanity in a
It's disgusting,
hospital,
and the
so.
food sucks too. The food in the hospital is not good.
yeah,
either.
we usually just have people come bring me food.
Exactly,
Yeah,
you order
I'm
in.
It's really
I get-
rare for me to eat it in the hospital.
But that's the other
My-
positive to living at home, right? Like when you're not feeling well,
Exactly.
you don't have to cook for yourself,
You got
right?
the-
Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
have someone
That's a big
you,
one.
you have someone that's able to provide food and water and nourishment for you that you're unable to do for yourself. I mean, when I'm sick, I lean heavily on the feeding tube, but at the same time, I do want to eat a little bit,
Well, yeah.
right? Like I can't just rely totally on my feeding tube. Like at some point, I do like to
Right.
have the feeling of chewing and swallowing. You know?
Yeah. It's substantial in
Exactly.
your stomach.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's definitely, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest positive to living at home is the home cooked meal.
Definitely.
That's my biggest positive. No joke.
And then they'd go and get me In-N-Out and Taco Bell.
Taco Bell. I don't like Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Taco Bell's.
I love Taco
Oh
Bell.
no.
Have you had In-N-Out burger?
Yeah, I've had In-N-Out's good. In-N-Out's
Okay,
good.
so
I'm more of a
that's my
Chick-fil-A is
my
my
comfort.
go-to fast food.
okay.
I agree.
I love
I
Chick-fil-A.
love Chick-fil-A.
Well, then
Chick-fil-A's
you
the best
can
thing.
get it home, and then you feel better.
Exactly.
get that food.
Someone's able to care for you, and
Go
I
get
think
it.
Yeah, exactly.
that circles back to the first responder. Like, who is your first responder, Leah?
My mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my mom, and then close second is my dad, but it's usually always my mom.
Yeah, it's mom.
You know, even if I'm in the hospital, a lot of times like she'll stay with me because I don't trust people in hospitals,
Yeah.
and I think it's because I'm a nurse and I've seen a whole lot go down, and I just really don't trust nurses and whatever, and it's just me. Like, I can't help it.
I definitely don't either. I know what you mean. I get your feeling, and I
Yeah.
know they're trying their hardest, but at the same time, we've been through so much. We know how to work the stuff.
Oh,
I mean,
we
I
do.
always say that
it's not really that.
Definitely.
It's more just like
Like
the
if they're
fact that
doing
a lot of times at night, I need like a couple hours of sleep, and at night seems to be the time when they're constantly doing things to me.
because they're bored. Because
And-
all they want to do is come in
Yeah.
the room. That's why.
Yeah.
I know.
The worst is
So,
like when they bring the
it's nice to
enzymes
have
in like
someone
3 in the
there
morning.
supervising when I just want like a couple hours of sleep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
that's usually what it is.
my mom was at my bedside every day for transplant because I needed I needed my comfort. I needed the home feeling there, which was my mom.
Mhm.
So it helped me so much just having her and having her eyes on me too and helping me because I needed that. And it reminded me of home because I couldn't go home, but just having her there felt homey. So it's just like the first responder that we have at home. It just makes you feel a lot better.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely. That's like 100% the reason why I still do live at home. Now I think I would be able to afford something in New York City, whereas I couldn't probably a few years ago. But now it's really just because it's having the comfort or the comfort level with my parents, or the safety net rather,
Right.
that allows me to feel like I can succeed when I am at my most vulnerable state, and that's when I'm sick.
Exactly.
And they can get you to a hospital really quick too.
Well, that's the other part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and your parents have been around it their entire lives, so you don't have to teach somebody new. Like when you go to college, that's just part of the learning experience. Just like living with a roommate right after college, it's also part of the learning experience. When you're supposed to be healthy at that point in your life, you're able to take some risks and sort of build that trust level. Whereas since I was so sick when I graduated college, although I'm better now, I wasn't really afforded that opportunity to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Did either of you have like a discussion after you graduated, or I don't know, like when you were at a time in your life where you might want to move out again, or
Yeah. Well,
with your parents being like,
Right.
is this a good situation? Is this not a good situation? Like, did either of your parents ever give their input, or was it solely just your decision?
well, I graduated when I was on the transplant list.
Well, I know
Remember?
that was
Yeah.
more
It's a little
so-
different for
I
you.
was
It's a
trying to
little
cover
different
my
for you.
bases,
Or-
but directing it towards both of you. You know
Well,
what I
yeah.
mean?
Well, no, I know, but
Yeah.
like obviously, when I graduated from high school, I went to community college. I thought 2 years. I'm gonna go off to college. I'm gonna go live on my own. But obviously, that did not happen because I got sicker, and then we got really sick. So I didn't really have that. We haven't had that conversation. But after transplant, now we're kind of starting to talk about that stuff.
Right.
Because I'm to a point that maybe I can go on my own eventually, not like right now, but obviously.
Right, but a lot
I've
sooner
afforded
than
yeah.
it would have been before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think in my sort of fashion, I look at it as a goal almost. I sort of be like, I need my PFTs over a certain number, or I need my weight to be at a certain number to do certain things, right? Like I always
Right.
sort of set myself an attainable goal, and that's really what motivates me through some of the harder days, right? Because I can only do those things when I'm healthy. And one of
Right.
those things is moving out of the house. And I think, I think I'm probably closer to that point than I ever have been. But at the same time, I really want to make sure that I am able to prove to myself that I can do it. I mean, I know that I can live on my own. I've done it before. I did it for 4 years in college.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I want to be able to prove to myself that my health is at a point where it would be safe for me to do so.
Yeah.
Right? Like I
Definitely.
I want to have that feeling where, maybe I wouldn't need to rely on that first responder for, maybe once or twice a year as opposed to the 3 or 4 times a year that I'm currently sort of going through. I think, it's okay to, like, everyone will see if it's going to get sick at some point, and it's unavoidable, like we said. But if it happens more frequently, then it's not worth it to get the apartment, like we said, because then you're paying rent on an empty place when you're homesick.
Right.
Yeah, and it's expensive, especially here in the Bay Area. I'm sure New York and the Bay Area are pretty alike.
It's probably comparable.
Baltimore's getting up there. That's all I have to say.
Okay, whatever.
It's just, it's just so expensive.
Way more than it should be.
Yeah,
Like I don't know.
yeah. I think that's really what it comes down to. I mean, my parents sort of like mentioned, we've like discussed it in brief, but we've never discussed I guess in length.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know. I do think that it is. I mean, I know it's something that I would like to do, but and I also know that I'll be doing the same exact things that I'm doing now. Like, I'll go to work, I'll come home, and I'll play video games, and then go to sleep. Right? Then, like, my day is not going to change very much.
It's not going to change.
Exactly. The only thing that may change is, seeing my friends more frequently. Being able to go to dinner with them on a whim, or something like that, because I wouldn't have to travel the 30 minutes to get to New York City. Right,
Yeah.
like that. That's the real
hard.
thing. That's the real thing that would change for me, because right now New York City is a train ride away. Right, that train ride.
Do you both have to travel kind of far to see your friends?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I definitely do.
So, like, how long does it take both of you if you wanted to go hang out with them on, like, a weeknight?
I mean, I wouldn't do it because it's just too annoying to even do that. Like, I'd have to take.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd have to take a 30, 45-minute train one way and then do it the way. I mean,
Yeah,
like
I wouldn't
commuting
do it.
to work, except commuting to see a friend, which I'm fine. I'm happy to do that on the weekend or like for an event,
Right.
but not just
Yeah.
like on a whim. Oh, I mean, what do you
Yeah.
live? Do you live like around your friends?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not really an
Yeah.
issue. Like,
I'm-
where I live is pretty central to my friends that live in the city, my friends that live, like, kind of more in the suburbs. So it's like, it's like a 15 to 20-minute drive to get into the city.
Okay.
And it's like a 10-minute drive to go see my friends that live in, like, the suburbs. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of right smack in the middle.
yeah.
Where my parents used to live, it was not the case. It was a pain in the butt to get to any of them. So I do understand being frustrated with, like, not being able to see your friends regularly. But when we moved here, it was kind of a perfect situation because it was really close to where I work. So it takes me about 10 minutes to get to work. So I'm really not in the car that much anymore like I used to be. And then going, to see my friends who live in the city, it takes me about 20 minutes.
It's easy. And you're able to drive
and
there, so
then-
you have your car and can leave whenever you want. Like, I'm tied to a train schedule because if I want to drive into the
Right.
city, driving into New York City I'm sure is very different than driving into Baltimore. Like, it's
Oh,
that
100%.
that's like a that could
I
be
don't
like
even think they're comparable.
that could be like an hour and a half process for me, despite
Oh, yeah.
the fact that I'm only 15
I
miles
would
away
get
as the crow
anxiety
flies.
about the parking situation.
San Francisco's
I get
So
I have
hard.
issues
Yeah,
about Baltimore
horrendous.
sometimes.
It's
I'm like,
horrendous.
oh my gosh, what if I can't find
But
a
that's the
spot?
thing, like, it's not even fun to, like, because then if you're going to sleep over at one of your friends' apartments or something like that, then you got to bring all your shit with you.
yeah,
Right? You
Yeah,
got to
I
bring
know.
your nebs and
Like,
your vest and all that
sure.
stuff, and it's like a huge process.
Right.
yeah.
That's like,
Oh,
that's
it
the
is.
other side of it. Like, to even go somewhere for, like, a 12-hour period, assuming the 12 hours is going to, include staying overnight, that's a huge undertaking.
Yeah, definitely.
No, it definitely is. And like a lot of times, at least when I like go stay with friends and stuff like that, like sometimes I'll go stay in DC because it's about like 45-minute drive. It's not too bad. But the thing is, a lot of times when I do that, I want to do my treatments before I leave because I don't want the burden of packing my vest, packing all these meds because it's too much.
Oh, that's
night.
definitely my thing. I
Yeah.
absolutely do treatments before I leave if I'm going to be, it's going
So I
to
do
be a
feel
late
like
night.
I'm missing out on some time with them because a lot of times, they're going to go to dinner before, they're going to do this, they're going to do this, and I kind of show up midnight
Midnight for them.
midway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to
Right.
pick which one you want to go to, basically.
Exactly. So it's kind of like you just have to pick.
Yeah.
You know.
And I'm
Weigh your
not,
options.
I'm not sure there's a right answer in that situation either.
There's
No.
no.
There's not.
It's just my preference. I don't prefer to pack the things if I don't have to. Now, if it's for like a couple of days, that's different.
That is a different thing.
You
But
know,
if it's an
still a
overnight,
pain
like
in
a
the butt,
single
but it's
overnight
more
is
worth
like the
it.
worst thing ever.
It is. It's tedious. I get irritated just packing all the stuff.
Then you become angry, and then you're running
I
late.
do.
Yeah, I get angry too when I'm packing stuff. I
and
hate
like
packing
the
my stuff.
vest is heavy.
I had to pack everything. I had an oxygen concentrator.
Yeah, I
I
mean, that's like
wouldn't
that's the worst.
chargers. I had this and that, and it was awful.
I would
I
be
remember
like,
it.
"Okay, Jeff, come here,
Yeah.
help me do this."
Yeah, it's like
right.
it's just
You have
another
to
it's
carry
another step
everything.
to, like, I guess, enjoying life. I mean, I always sort of look at the treatments in the morning and the night as sort of like the gate to doing something, right? The nighttime treatments are the gateway to going to sleep, and the morning treatments are the gateway to the rest of the day, right? It's sort of the same thing when you're trying to get out of the house and go do something social. Like, are your evening treatments then become the gateway for that, or packing your treatments become the gateway for that? Like, those are all things that go into this that not everyone has to deal with, right? Healthy people don't have to deal with that. And I credit my friends for really understanding that. But at the same time, how much do they really understand it, right? Like, you can't expect them to really know the ins and outs of what you're going through to spend the night out or something like that, especially when you're not feeling well.
Exactly. And then a lot of times I show up and I'm just exhausted because
of the whole process of getting there.
Did to get there, you know?
Yes.
And then they don't really understand when, okay, this is something that gets to me sometimes. So if I drive a significant different distance to see one of my friends and I've packed all of my treatments and I'm pretty much like, I'm out of breath at this point. And then they don't really help me with the whole parking situation. Like, a lot of times when I drive to DC, a lot of my friends have designated spots.
Right.
So they could easily move their car onto a street spot. You know what I mean? Like, they know what times a day. That's a good idea to do. And then I end up having to park, you know, 1 mile to 2 miles away from where I actually need to be. And then I'm lugging all my treatments with me to go to wherever their place is. By the time I get to their place, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, I'm ready to take a nap. I don't really want to socialize with anyone. I'm actually probably the worst person ever to hang out with. So, like, I don't know.
Well, it's like you want to just get an Uber from your car that you just parked.
I've thought about it.
Yeah,
and I've never done it.
Sometimes that's okay. You know, sometimes that's okay.
I mean, I think there are certainly some expenses that people with CF are going to have to live somewhat of a, you know, a normal life in some situations. You know, like, I find myself spending money on, like, weird things. Like, I would rather buy the high-speed nebulizer cups than the low-speed nebulizer cups, just so that I can get through my treatments in an hour rather than an hour and a half.
Yeah,
right? Like, those are like little stupid hidden expenses that people with cystic fibrosis have. That when you're living at home, those really, you know, start to add up, right?
They do add up.
Totally. Like, just the medical bills in itself for.
I mean, that's like a whole different, like, that's a whole different thing.
That's a whole thing.
Like going and like paying co-pays and stuff like that. That's different. But like,
definitely.
I'm talking about like little, like, daily things that you wouldn't even think of.
Yeah.
Like when I travel somewhere, like, I'm almost like traveling like for a longer period of time is a huge undertaking for people with CF. So I'm almost like, I'd rather get there the night before the day we had planned to get the trip going, just so that I can be there and have to not deal with my treatments that early morning. You know, say like we're going somewhere like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I'll fly there Thursday night, and I'll book the extra hotel room for whatever, $200. The flight's going to be about the same, but I'd spend the extra $200 just so I can
get situated.
Exactly, and get a good night of sleep rather than having to wake up at 4 a.m, do treatments, get to the airport, fly somewhere, and then you get there that morning, like around noon or whatever. Then you got to put all the stuff in the hotel room, and then the day like begins then. Like, I'd rather already be there the night before, and
I'm the same exact way.
Maybe I'd rather, you know, the night before you just get an extra dinner. You know, you're there by yourself. I've done this plenty of times. So you can fly somewhere by yourself and you do it. Yeah, you're there. Your friends meet you there. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that's
in
those
the
are
long
like
run, it's so much easier.
Exactly. If you're saving yourself the hassle of even getting somewhere or doing something, then why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
Like, that's why you have money.
Exactly.
I'm getting tired just thinking about all that.
Oh, it's horrendous. I know. I am too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we should bring this podcast to a close. We're sort of at the time here. This has been a good topic, I think. When one of us moves out, we'll venture to that side of this. Yes, we'll revisit the topic here. Remember, if you want to hear us podcast about something specific, you can reach out to the Salty Sisters at saltysisters@gmail.com. You can follow them on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Salty Sisters. If you want to email me, I'm gunnersblog@esiason.org, or you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and that, like, those social media platforms. If you're listening to the podcast on a medium other than iTunes, remember you can subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you do subscribe to us, remember to like, share, and review. Very important. And also rate us. Remember, give us the 5 stars. We'd love the 5 stars. And you can also follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is
breathe_in_pod.
That's the Instagram. The Instagram is active. The DMs are open. If you want to slide
they
the DMs,
slide into them.
Yes, the DMs are open on the Instagram. make sure to slide the DM if you want to.
Slide in.
Thanks for joining us. I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving yesterday, and we will be back next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.